Hello, I am Stephen Mallon and welcome back to Refractions. I'm so glad we're all back together. I'm sorry for the brief pause. I had a job come up. We had to reschedule our previous episode, but it is back on the schedule, so please keep an eye out for that. And I'm really excited. We have Catherine Couturier joining us from Houston, Texas. And so thank you, Catherine. And please say your name for me, because I know I still didn't do it incredibly well.
It's okay. More people say it wrong than say it right. It's in English, we just say Catherine Couturier. In French, it'd be Catherine Couturier, just to be very fancy, but I pretty much blow that off in Texas.
How long have you been in Texas?
I was born here. So I grew up in a really small town in East Texas, about halfway between Houston and Dallas. Went to college in San Antonio, went to France for a year, came back, moved to Houston when I graduated. So kind of born and bred.
Okay. So French heritage, French family?
French heritage, and then married a French guy that I met when I was studying abroad in Paris. So I'm quite stereotypical in that way. So that's where I had a French maiden name. And when I was little, I'd be like, I'm going to drop this hard to pronounce name that no one can spell. And I'm going to marry somebody named Smith or Brown or White. And I got Couturier, like out of the frying pan into the fire. But when I go to France, they say, comment vous appelez-vous? And I say Catherine Couturier, and they just write it down. They don't ask any questions. And that is just a brief moment of joy, like every other year.
Nice. So what is your history with photography?
So the way I got into specifically the photography gallery world is I was an art history major in college, and specifically doing social art history. So not so much about what was being, painted or produced, but why and when and by whom and what the cultural influences were and what was going on very much at the time. And photography, you can't not be of the time just by the nature of photography. So there was a certain amount of crossover there that I'd taken. The year I was in France, I was forced to do a studio photography class at Parsons, actually, with a bunch of serious photography art school students from New York. And then there was me, and they hated me because I messed everything up all the time because I didn't know what I was doing. And they ended up banishing me to this kind of broken enlarger that was in the corner by itself because I kept forgetting to close my little tray thing. And I never technically ruined anybody's stuff. I just got very, very, very close to ruining everybody's stuff all the time. So I do understand how a print's made, which was good when I got in this business. And then, I'd always loved photographs. I'd always loved photography. I'd written a lot of papers about photographers in high school and college. And when I was looking for gallery jobs in Houston, once I graduated, there was a photography gallery called John Cleary Gallery that was hiring. And I kind of jumped at the chance. And I was 22 years old and knew this much. But I thought I wanted to be an art dealer, and it turns out I did.
Oh, wow. And then how long has it been that you opened your own gallery?
So I worked for John and ran his gallery for about 8.5 years. And then he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he came to work, and I had my son's now a senior in high school, but he was 18 months old. He was on my hip, and John said, hey, it turns out it's not diabetes, it's pancreatic cancer. I'm going to be dead in a month. You need to figure out what we're doing about this gallery. And I literally am holding a baby on my hip, and I went, what? And he goes, I don't want to talk about it. You're smart, figure it out. So I was like, okay. So my husband and I kind of just put two heads together and kind of came up with a way we thought we could kind of manage to buy the gallery and set up an estate and a trust so that the work John owned could be, consigned back. And it was really, really complicated. And John did end up dying literally a month later. And I don't know exactly how I did it and kept everything together because it really was a nutty time. But I think it was that John had always kind of been like, we never closed the gallery, like it doesn't matter what happens. And so I just kind of kept going to work and kept doing everything I can and sort of got through it. So I have owned my own gallery since May 5th. And the only reason I remember is because it's Cinco de Mayo. So every year we drink margaritas. Any excuse, we're from Houston. But that was 2008. So I guess that's 15 years as of May that I've owned my own gallery. I kept the name John Cleary Gallery for almost 5 years. He'd asked me to keep it for 2 and I kept it for almost 5. So it's only been under my name since 2012.
Okay. But you've been operating it.
I've been, yeah, for 15 years. And then I've literally been sitting at the exact same desk in the exact same gallery since December 1999.
Wow. Same space.
Same space.
Is there a gallery district? Is there like a feeling in, because you're in Houston now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there like a,
well, so there's kind of a few. Houston's super, super big. It's, I think Phoenix is the only city that's actually per square mileage larger than Houston. So there's never just one of anything. But I would say by Houston standards, there's definitely an area that's kind of museum district, Montrose, Upper Kirby. By like New York standards, that square footage would be like half of Manhattan though. So it's like you can't walk from every gallery to every gallery, but as I said, by Texas standards, we're pretty close together between the Menil Museum, my strip, which is Gallery Row. There's a building called 4411, and that's right by the Museum of Fine Arts and the Contemporary Arts Museum. So it's nice. I mean, you can definitely stay in the same part of town and see a lot of art.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, like New York, we've got, there's Chelsea, Tribeca, you can walk. I wouldn't,
Right. Yeah, you can't walk here. I mean, if you tried, well, you'd get hit by a car, first off. Second off, about 10 months out of the year, you'd pass out because it's too hot. You'd definitely be sweaty because it's humid all the time. I mean, it's just not a place you'd want to walk. So I definitely don't ever recommend it here. If you live in a certain neighborhood or two, you could kind of walk around, but it's just not a very walkable city. It's just way too big.
Yeah. Yeah. So we met kind of through my dealer, through Daniel AIPAD, because I think he was on a panel discussion with you at PhotoFest, right? That's when you connected. Are you, and then PhotoFest is coming back. Are you reviewing? Are you doing anything with them this year? Or?
I'm not. I reviewed with them for a long time and I will again in the future. But my problem is when I'm doing reviews in town, that means I have to be doing reviews all day. Plus I have to somehow be running my gallery. Plus I have to pick up my kids from school and do all my house stuff too. If I'm doing portfolio reviews and I'm out of town, then I don't have to worry about the kids and the house and the dog and the gallery and all of that kind of stuff. So it's actually a lot harder for me to do them here. A lot of times artists will come to town and they'll call the gallery and make an appointment and ask if they can come show me work. And I'm happy to do that. Just call first and make an appointment. And just so I know I'm here and I can flip through your work in 5 or 10 minutes and you can have a free portfolio review.
Oh, that's great to hear. And then you, I think you also told me that recently you got onto the review board for AIPAD.
Yes, right? I am a board member of AIPAD, which is the Association of International Photographic Arts Dealers. It's the longest running and most important photography art dealer organization in the world. And I've been a member ever since I was John Cleary Gallery. They do the best and biggest photo fair in the US. And I would say the only one in the world that's possibly could be considered equal or better would be Perry Photo. So being on the board has been really, really exciting because it is a membership that I really am passionate about. Because when my, career kind of did get so sidetracked when John got sick and things like that, it was the other AIPAD dealers that really helped me out. It was the other AIPAD dealers that said, how can we help you? How can we support you? What do you need? We know this is terrible. And it was so short notice and still a big handful of AIPAD dealers got last minute flights, Steve Bolger, even from a different country to fly in for John's funeral. Aww. And so it's not a group that has, 6,000 members and is therefore not personal. It's an incredibly kind of tight group of just the absolute best of the best. And there's always someone that I can call if I need something or need a price or need to know the history of something. There is always, someone bigger and brighter about the subject than I am, which is just great. So being on the board's been interesting because, part of it is, planning the next art fair, which is going to be back at the Armory, which we're very excited about in the spring. And part of it's just, about the overall, mission of the organization and kind of what does the future look like. And it's really been great. I've been very excited to be on it.
And is it brand new? Is it just the past year you got on, or?
Yes. I was, I don't know, sworn in, what do you call it? At AIPAD at the fair last year. That's kind of when our year starts.
Okay. So do they have a board meeting at the fair, like just to discuss?
We didn't technically have an in-person, and we were actually just talking about that, whether or not we want to do an in-person and when. What's been so great about COVID, if nothing else, is that we all can do things like this without having to get on a plane. And so far we've just been doing board meetings this way. And it's great because back when it used to be that you had to fly to New York kind of every month to be on the board, a lot of us from different states just didn't, we didn't even want to be on it because it was too much. And so then you ended up with just a board full of New York galleries, which is fine. But there's a lot more diversity, I'd say, on the board now. The board president's from Belgium. We've got a really great group that can all bring kind of different ideas and different experiences to the organization. So,
well, it's good to hear. It's nice. I didn't think about the support aspect of it. I've always kind of, I see that, the inclusivity of it, and it's like, it's like the dream photo club, and for galleries that want to get in, like what are some things that they can do to try to get the attention of the board?
So they would need to get letters of recommendation, which means basically they need to have worked with somebody who's a member. Some people will, can very easily find 10 people that they've worked with who will write them letters of recommendation. I think you only need 2 maybe to get full membership. And you need to have had a program that people, kind of that we can see what you've done before, see the quality of the work. We have to make sure that your artists are happy with you, that clients are happy with you, that other dealers are happy with you, that you do kind of play fair in a lot of ways. And, and I think anybody that's been in business for, 5 years or so that's had a gallery that specifically or that specializes in photography. You don't have to be 100% photography, just majority. I absolutely think everyone should apply. I think it's just an absolute great thing to be a part of, and a real kind of feather in your cap as an art dealer to have it on your website that you're a member of AIPAD.
It is, yeah, for sure. That's good to hear. You have, and just talking about AIPAD and like the work that's shown and everything, you show a balance between like contemporary and classic photography, right? Like, what do you think your split is? Is it 50-50 or where is it weighted?
I have no idea. I think that probably depends on the year in a certain way. In a lot of ways, because everything's just really cyclical. So I'll have a year where I sell nothing but secondary market work or vintage work. And then I'll have a year where I sell none of it and all I sell is contemporary work. So I am always buying if I find good deals on really fantastic photographs, even if I'm not selling those things right now. If it's a great photograph and I love it and I think it's wonderful, and if I have any money, that's the kicker with photography, with all art dealers. And if I have the money, then I do try to, buy that. I really like kind of mid-century French street photography, the Cortege, Cartier-Bresson, Wano, Bouba, like all those guys, Roni. I'm a sucker for that kind of work. I've been buying up the last couple of years a good bit of Ruth Bernhard's work because I think she's the greatest nude photographer of all time. I bought a collection from a collector of mine had passed away, and I bought their collection from their son, which was really diverse and really fantastic. And I'm really glad to be able to have that work in the gallery. But what John Cleary, who I first was working for, always said was that contemporary work can kind of keep the lights on, but if you actually want to make any money, you need to have secondary market stuff. Because just photography just doesn't cost that much. And that's a great thing as far as getting collectors and collectability goes. But you know, if everything we sold was $50,000, it'd be a lot easier to pay my rent than if I'm having to sell everything at $2,000, $5,000, $1,000, you know? So it's nice to have both. I like both. I was the only photography gallery in Houston for a really long time. There's now 2 others. But I didn't have to pigeonhole myself, so I didn't. I mean, I kind of say my name's on the door, so if I like it, then I can put it in here. If I like it and it's good and I think I can sell it, and the artist isn't crazy. That is the last part that they have to manage to do.
I'm a little choppy.
Okay.
Hope that was, but yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about how you didn't and don't have to, and you've decided not to in the future, and also about pigeonholing yourself about that issue about, you know, if you're a classical photographer versus contemporary, you're just like, nope, I'm doing both and deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I like what's so great about photography in general is just how varied the medium can be. And, you know, new processes are coming out all the time. All the old processes are still being done, even though some are stupid and they shouldn't be being done because they're not good photographs and they're expensive and whatever. But it's like the people who are, you know, walking down the street dragging a typewriter instead of just doing it on a computer, you know. So it's like, if you want to, you know, run back to the past, you feel free. But yeah, there's not really anything that I'm not open to. The work needs to be good. It needs to be something I haven't seen before. It needs to be well made. It's, you know, I tell people all the time, I sell photographs. That's a 3-dimensional object. I don't sell JPEGs. I sell an actual photograph. So the print itself has to be great. And it has to be things I think I can sell, because ultimately I'm not doing an artist any favors at all if I put up work that costs them money to make and ship to me for me not to sell anything. So I'm really conscientious of that, of trying to, you know, make sure that I'm making people money when, you know, as best I can.
I like hearing that. Have you noticed any trends about photography? It's like, are people shifting towards smaller editions or like the unique print or the classical? Are you getting like any constant or notice any, you know, requests along those ways, or?
No, I mean, I'm very anti super small editions. Like when someone has edition of 2 or a unique print, I go, why? Unless it's a process that only can produce one. But if you've taken a 35mm negative of something, the whole point of photography is to make more than one of them. And I like photography for that democratic nature, that I can have one and you can have one and MoMA can have one and we can all be happy. And isn't that wonderful? So I kind of go, yeah, so I get, like, I wouldn't be interested in an artist that did too small an edition. That doesn't mean everybody has to do 1,000, because 1,000 people are not going to want anything. But unless there's a reason for it to be unique, then don't, or go paint, or, you know, do something else, because that's kind of against the whole point of photography. Trends though, I mean, that's definitely, people the last couple of years have been trying to be more inclusive, which I think is great. I think some galleries are doing that really, really well. I think some galleries are not. But same for museums. I think a lot of them are really doing a good job and some are flailing. But the fact that people are putting in the effort, I think, really says a lot about the art world in general, that people are trying to get it right. So that's definitely been a little bit of a trend. I don't know. I was trying to think of photo fairs since that just happened, but no, I mean, there's still such variety going on in contemporary photography, and, you know, on the big names and the lower names. I mean, there's just a lot of variety, which is great. You know, there's still people doing kind of classic landscapes and doing silver prints. And then there's plenty of people doing these, you know, huge constructions and using AI elements and, you know, these mural size prints and, you know, all sorts of stuff. So I think that no matter what you like, I think you'll be able to find it in contemporary photography right now on a really high level. There's so much great work being made.
That's a good point, right? That there's something there for everybody, right? It's like if you're looking for a classical work, it's available. If you're looking for like a digitally based like AI construction, it's available. It's out there. You may not necessarily be selling it, but like from the collector's standpoint, you can get pretty much everything and anything you want.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Would you ever be interested in having a second location, or like?
No, 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 and never, never, no. I see people do that. And I'm always like, are you insane? Why would you want that? Why would you want to double your overhead? Why would you want to stretch yourself that thin? Like, I do understand there's people that can do it, and I'm sure they do it well, but I'm going to leave that to like the Larry Gagoshins of the world, the David Zwerners. They've got it figured out in a way that I don't. So one location is more than enough for me. You know, the internet does kind of give us, you know, enough reach, and photography I think is easier to buy online than some other forms of art, because even though you can't really see the quality of a print from, you know, someone's website, if you've worked with that dealer for a long time, which I've been doing this for 25 years, so you know, my collectors for the most part come back to me because they know my eye and they trust me. So the longer you've been in it, the more you can kind of do online, but also because photography is easier to ship. It's literally just easier to deal with as far as getting it someplace else. If all I had in here were, you know, 600-pound sculptures, that's going to be just a completely different story if my collector base is all in New York. But as it is, someone in New York wants something, I ship it, it's there in 3 days, no big deal.
That's so true.
Yeah.
How much of your like collector base is based within like Houston and the rest of the US and overseas? Like, what do you think
percentage wise, I'm sure it depends on the year, and I don't pay that much attention to those things, because I think most dealers that are established and have been doing it for a long time will tell you that they sell to the same about 15 people over and over and over again. That there's some others that pop up every now and then, but you've got your, you know, your really serious collectors. You know, I always say it's collectors who aren't buying it to put on the wall, they're putting it to stick under a bed, like that they're collecting because they have to collect and they love it. And that mentality isn't just for art collectors, it's coin collectors, it's stamp collectors, it's watch collectors, it's whatever it is that you collect. That consumer, you know, I need more of it, this thing that I love. Those are the people that really do support you and keep you in business, you know, at the end of the day. And so, yeah, I mean, I've got collectors that I sell to in New York that I've been selling to for 15 years, probably. And that's the goal when you do art fairs and things, at least for me. I don't look at fairs as a way to just sell work that week. I'm trying to actually meet new people, meet collectors, meet people who like the same stuff I do, so that we can work together long term and I can help them. There's a couple of collections that I run for my collectors, which is always fun because there's a couple of people I can basically buy work for without even showing it to them, because I know what they have, I know what they like, I know what they're willing to spend. Like, and that's really, really, really fun. So if anyone would like me to build a collection for them, Catherine Couturier Gallery in Houston, Texas. So yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think probably it's still, you know, more than half is probably still outside of Houston. But when I started, I mean, it was probably only 20% was in Houston, and that number is growing and growing and growing every day. I mean, you know, 20 years ago, Houston was still one generation outside of being a cow town. So it's just not like that anymore. So it's nice. And we have just some of the best public art in the entire country. Rothko Chapel's one of the best public art pieces in the whole world. I mean, we've got just incredible art scene here, and lots of support, and everybody's friends with each other, and it's really, really great. The Museum of Fine Arts Houston actually has the largest photography collection in the country, and it's one of the largest in the world. So it's a great town if you're into art. Really great.
That's good to yeah, I didn't know that it was the largest. I didn't, the museum
Mhm.
is the largest collection of photography in the US.
Yep. Yep. So Ann Tucker started it from literally nothing in the 70s and built it piece by piece by piece. And then ultimately, the Manfred Heiding was selling his collection, and museums all over the world were battling for it. And Ann Tucker's the one that got it. So once that collection came in, we were officially the largest. So
Very cool.
mhm.
There was a question I had about the, oh, I love the under the bed reference of collectors, like that idea of just like people that are out there that are so obsessed about something, and it's not just about filling that blank space on the
Right.
wall. And like, I have to have this object to
Mhm.
stay with me, you know. If I've got like one collector that like only buys print number 3 out of editions.
Uh-huh.
Um,
I have a collector. He doesn't do it as much anymore, but he used to. He'd say, if they haven't done, because he was the third, that was his last name. And so, I mean, he was the third. So we always liked that. And so he was like, not if it's going to mess him up, but, so he'll definitely buy something that's not, but when given the option, he'll pick number 3. Jay-Z supposedly buys a lot of art that has the number 4 in it, because I don't know, something. I don't remember what it is. And that's why Blue Ivy, their daughter, I don't know. It's something about the number 4. It's something about the number 4. For a while there, if you kind of were a good painter with some smarts, you would paint a little 4 into a painting in New York and possibly get it in front of Jay-Z. So, know your market. But yeah, no, I mean, the thing about, the difference between kind of buying to enjoy it on the wall and really seriously collecting anything. I mean, I came home one time from my, I think it was Maggie Taylor was one of my artists, was about to have a price increase, and there were 5 pieces I wanted. Well, the price was going to go up. Obviously, I would have been stupid not to buy it right then. So I go home with like 5 new pieces, and my husband goes, "Where are we putting these?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'll figure it out." And then he goes, "How are we paying for this?" And I said, "Arno, you are talking about this as though this was something I wanted. This was something I needed. Do not like bother me about needs in this house." So, but that's a collector. That's a collector. They don't want it. They need it,
Yeah, that's the collector mentality, right? Just
Mhm.
of like that absolute like obsession of no, I have to have
I
this.
have to have this. Exactly right.
So it's about finding those, individuals that are obsessed about the, same thing or elements within the collection that you sell. And yeah, and I guess one of the best ways to find those people on top of the gallery, on top of the website and everything is being at the art fairs,
Mhm.
to have the work on the wall, start the relationship, and then yeah, and then just piece by piece you find out what their desires are.
Yep.
It's
Yeah, and when I'm trying to figure out a fair, if it is something like AIPAD where I'm not just putting one person on the wall, I do think, not strategically, I wouldn't say, but I do want to make sure that it looks like my gallery, so that the people who are coming in like the same thing I do. Because sometimes I think galleries will put up a thing at a fair that doesn't look anything like the rest of their program. And then, yeah, they'll sell those pieces, but then those collectors don't want to buy anything else. Well, I mean, that's fine. Again, if all you're thinking about a fair is what you're going to sell that week. But I just don't look at it that way. And I've been talking to a lot of people about AIPAD because the early bird pricing just ended. And I think we've only got 1 space left for a dealer to move in at the fair, which is awesome. And means we're going to have a really, really good fair. But I was talking to somebody, I was like, just make sure that you represent your gallery on the walls so that people keep coming back to you. The collectors that show up at AIPAD, I mean, they fly in for it, that these are people who are serious long-term collectors. And you want to make sure that, they're finding you if you have the stuff they like. Which, and you can't get everybody. Like, I'm not going to have the stuff that everybody wants.
I think that's such a good strategy about having it just as an extension of the gallery rather than, at least the main booth not being some you know, I don't want to say random, but just very distinct from what the normal programming is. Yeah, that I hadn't thought about it like that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, and that's, I mean, I did a one-person booth for Photo Fairs and for Expo Chicago, which was Patty Carroll, and we did gangbusters at both. And Patty definitely has a lot in common with a lot of my artists. It's definitely not secondary market. It's as contemporary as they come, but there's a certain amount of cleverness. And even when I'm talking about kind of those, 40s to 60s French street guys, there's the clever ones are the ones I like. It's not the, depressing ones. It's not the down and dirties. It's the funny, the uplifting, the clever, the things that kind of make you laugh a little bit. And I always say when I buy photography, I'm like, if that was the first thing I saw when I woke up, is that going to wreck my day, or is it going to make my day start off well? So I like to think and that's kind of the vibe I've got around the gallery and as a whole. So, yeah, so as I said, even when I've done single booths, and I've done a single booth with just Maggie Taylor before, I still think it says enough about the contemporary aspect of the gallery to make those worthwhile, for sure.
That makes sense. How many fairs do you do a year on average?
It depends. Some years just one. I mean, I do AIPAD for sure every year. That's the only one I do for sure. This year I did 3 because I did Photo Fairs and Expo and AIPAD. I think we're going to skip Expo next year. Photo Fairs, this was the first one, so I don't know if they'll do it again. And we'll see if anything else pops up. Fairs are incredibly expensive and they're really time consuming, and if you don't think they're going to be worth it, or if you don't think there's at least a shot they're going to be worth it, it's very easy to say no to them because they're exhausting. And as I said, just take an immense amount of money going out way before you have any chance of getting it back. So, and that's hard for dealers. And that's, again, that's not just photography, that's all art dealers. These are big investments and, you hope they pay off, but they might not. And that's scary, the first day, or until you make some sales. And sometimes you won't until Sunday afternoon, and you can look, or at least I can look around on Sunday morning when I get to fairs, and I can tell who's doing okay and who's not. There's a certain
expression in the booth.
Yeah, there's a lack of blood in the face that is pretty obvious to those of us who've been there, because I've been there. I mean, I've definitely had fairs where everything I sold was at the opening, and so I thought it was going to be fantastic, but I never sold anything else. And I've had fairs where I sold nothing until the end of Sunday and was just sweating it out, thinking I was going to have to, walk home to Texas because I was going to have to cancel my flight. So it's a bit of a hike.
Yeah, with the mag liner just dragging it along I-95, right. Art for Texas.
Exactly.
So, all right, so you won't open a second gallery, but if you had like an assistant that was leaving and wants to open their own space, or you met somebody that's like thinking about it, where do you think would be a good market for them to go? Do you think they should go? Because I was reading that there was some of the cities that are kind of like developing due to the industries that are moving close by, or some of the areas that need galleries. Would you agree with that? Like going to Atlanta or somewhere, or what do you think?
I mean, there's some really great galleries in Atlanta that have managed to, do great work and have great businesses built. A lot of times it really does come down to how many people live there. So you go into some of the towns that are just smaller, there's just not that many people. And the fewer people there are, that little 1%, not meaning financial 1%, because art collecting and money really don't have all that much to do with each other. I know plenty of people with lots of money who have never bought a piece of art in their life. And I know people like my parents who were school teachers and never had any money and had an art collection. So those things are not together, but it is a very small chunk of the population that actually buys art. Whoever even thinks about buying art. I mean, I have friends that will come into my house and they're like, wait, you bought all this stuff? And I'm like, yes, you can too. But all they know about art is museums, or what they see, the kind of big blue chip Jeff Koons kind of stuff. So they think it all costs $10 million. And then when you explain to them, no, you can have something really beautiful on your wall for a couple of $1,000s that's going to make you happy every single day. They just don't know that. And it's a very small chunk of us that actually aren't even intimidated to walk into galleries. I mean, I tell people all the time, you don't have to whisper in my gallery, and you don't have to whisper in museums either. They don't pay taxes because they're educational places. You're supposed to be learning. So don't go around screaming, but it doesn't have to be like this. It's really okay. What was the question? Oh, so different markets.
Location.
It's tough. I mean, it's New York, of course, is the biggest one, but again, we're just talking about an incredibly large population. I would not want to go to LA personally. Miami either. The type of work they do and that sells there is just not the kind of work that I show. San Francisco's always been a notoriously hard market to make a living. Chicago, there's some really great galleries in Chicago. Atlanta, as I said, there's a few really good galleries in Atlanta, but I know it's got to be tough just because there's just not that many people there. And Houston's the 4th largest city at this point, and it's still tough. I mean, it's still tough to make to make a go of it just in Houston. But it's getting better. I mean, just more and more people are collecting all the time. And it's an interesting time for me just because a lot of my collectors that I started with are now in their kind of 70s and 80s, and they're thinking about deaccessioning, not buying anymore. Yep. And so then I have to say, okay, well, are the people who are coming up wanting that stuff, is this going to become another cycle or what? So that's been interesting too, to see, because I've been doing it for so long, what starts someone in collecting and what ends someone in collecting. Because sometimes people do just go, you know what, I'm done. And they just don't collect anymore. And yeah, and that can be for a variety of reasons, but usually it's just, they've got too much stuff. They don't want to have anything else. Sorry, got an email.
No worries.
Yeah, but other markets, I mean, it's tough. Like Dallas I read one time that people who aren't from Texas think Dallas is bigger than Houston, 75% of them. Dallas is teeny tiny compared to Houston. And they said the reason people outside of Texas think that is because Dallas had a show. There was a show called Dallas, and that's the only reason. And I'm like, they're not even in the city on that show. Like, that makes no sense to me. Anyway, Dallas is a tough one. Austin, same thing. I think a lot of people think Austin would be a great place to have a gallery. It's really not that big. The infrastructure is pretty tough, especially when the students are in, because there's just not enough space for everything. It's incredibly expensive. And there's just not enough people to really, really form a collector base there. So sometimes it's tough to pick kind of a beautiful location and hope that just kind of all works out. Some people definitely do pop up in sort of touristy areas like, Aspen or Jackson Hole, things like that, which is fine. You're going to have a certain amount of people who like to buy art on vacation, but you're also going to have really seasonal, abilities to sell work, and really high overhead. So, it's tough. No matter where you are, it's going to be hard to make money.
Agreed. And like, it's interesting what you're saying about the number game again, and just about like having the 1 million+ people in the city. Mm-hmm. That's just that the odds that there's going to be more collectors there is just better. Just looking at it from that standpoint, it's very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a statistics game at the end of the day. And then, but it is when you go to New York, and I shouldn't even just say New York, because it's not just people in New York, it's people from all over that go to AIPAD, but it really is such a sophisticated group of collectors that get there. I'm not having to answer kind of A/B questions like, is this an original? And the things that we always get from people who don't, who haven't been collecting or dealing with photography for a long time. They're asking me Y and Z questions. They've looked at the thing and they already know 99%. So that's great. I mean, it keeps you on your toes a little bit more when you have, a densely populated art fair and everybody's smart. It's pretty exciting. And you just kind of hope you know the answers when they ask the questions.
Love it. So are you going to Miami at all? Are you going to go down there to start shopping or?
No, Miami, the people who appear to do well in Miami, it's big, bold, abstract color work. and that's pretty much not what I do at all. And one of my artists has a place there, and we were kind of talking about it a little bit, but I don't know. And then it's hard to get around, and I think it's a little bit much for me right now. Maybe when my kids are a little bit older and I've got, a little bit more energy back. I did go to Perry Photo last year just to look in case I was ever interested in doing that fair. And it was just fantastic. I wish I were going this year because the quality and just the depth of, or the dearth, I should say, of photography there was just absolutely mind-blowing. And there were so many galleries that I didn't know and that I hadn't heard of because they were from, deep inside Europe. Yeah, so anybody who can get to Perry Photo, I definitely say go. It was really a knockout, but the crowds were unbelievable. I got there during the VIP hours in the morning, and by the time the VIP section was over, there was a crowd all the way down the street waiting to get in.
Wow.
So that was, I'm sure, very exciting for dealers who are showing, but that's got to be a fast-paced thing, and you're, in theory, switching languages and all this other stuff. So that would be a different show to do for sure.
So are you fluent?
I always tell people, if you don't speak French, you would think I was fluent. If you do speak French, you're going to realize that whole masculine feminine thing, I kind of blur the lines a little bit. I would not say that I am fluent. I can get around fine. I can tell jokes. I can get jokes. And I can, I'm all right. But is any French person going to listen to me and go, "Oh, you must be from Paris"? No, not going to happen.
It sounds like you're like 90% there, which is already a big leg up for possibly doing the fair.
Well, I say kind of what I say about karaoke, which is that like what I lack in ability, I make up for with stage presence. So I think that my French is probably falling under that category too.
I love it. Well, I hope I'll definitely see you at AIPAD. Good luck with Perry Photo, and once the kids are older, and good luck with trick or treating. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about? We covered so much, and I love it.
I can't think of anything specifically. You didn't ask me who my favorite photographer was. People ask me that all the time. And the answer is, I don't know.
Actually, I have one question that I forgot about. Is there anything on like your bucket list as a dealer? Like, would Perry Photo like fall into that? Or is there like a collection that you'd love? Like, has the MoMA ever bought anything? Like, that's one of my goals. It's like the MoMA. It's like, oh
yeah. No, I sold something to the Morgan Library a couple of years ago, and it was this crazy unique thing. And I was so excited because it was going to the exact right home. I have not sold anything to MoMA nor the Met that I know of. But that Morgan Library sale was really pretty exciting. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say doing Perry Photo would be kind of a goal. If I made money at Perry Photo, I'd say that would feel like a success. Making money at anything would feel like a success. I don't know. I mean, there was a photograph I really wanted to buy, and I'd wanted to buy it for 20 years. And a couple of years ago, because it was COVID and I had a corporate job and I was, making money a little bit. And I said, you know what? I've wanted this stupid piece of paper for 20 years. I'm buying it. And I did. And I got it framed so fancy and it's so beautiful. And I put it on the wall and I sat there and I thought to myself, did I even want this anymore? Or if I just wanted it for so long? But I think I still want it. It's really a great photograph. but now I don't have a number one. That's the other thing. People keep saying, okay, well, what's number one, photograph you want? And I'm like, there's not one now. So I think I need that. I compare it to the end of The Princess Bride. Inigo Montoya has killed the six-finger man. He's been on this revenge plot since he was like 7 years old. And at the end, he doesn't know what to do. And he's like, this is the only thing I've ever done. And then Wesley looks at him and says, have you considered piracy? So it's kind of where I am right now. I haven't figured out that next goal.
Well, I know a couple of people that have got ships. If you're leaning towards it, hopefully not the piracy part, but
right. I think I'm good. I'm at sea level. This is as low as I'd like to go.
Well, Catherine, thank you so much. This has been really informative and enjoyable. And thank you for making me smile and taking the time to do this with us. Where can they find you?
Catherine Couturier Gallery on everything. So the website is Catherine Couturier Gallery. The Instagram account, I love Instagram, is Catherine Couturier Gallery. Threads is Cat Couturier. My personal Instagram is Cat Couturier. What else do we do? Facebook is Catherine Couturier Gallery. Just Google, and Google's gotten really smart. If you even kind of halfway spell my name correctly, it'll get you there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you at AIPAD in the in the spring.
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super touched.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right. Bye, everybody.